Hey there everyone, it's Sam here. Over the past 2 weeks, since the NRL have decided to experiment with interpretations and rules halfway through the season, this is what's happened for North Queensland. In round 10, they lost against the Eastern Suburbs. They were 22-16 down with 15 minutes to go, and a penalty was blown on Lachlan Burt for a high tackle. The week previously, that would have only been penalty sufficient, not sin bin efficient. As a staunch one-eyed Cowboy supporter, I can argue that that cost us an opportunity to level and potentially win that game and walk away with 2 competition points. But from the 65th minute mark of that match, the game was over. Fast forward 1 week and we are hosting the Newcastle Knights. And in that game, we were up 16-0. And then a penalty was blown on Jason Taumalolo for a soft slap across the face that sent him to the sin bin, whereas only 2 weeks ago, that would have only been penalty sufficient, not sin bin efficient. Couple of minutes later, Blurry had his ankles broken and he clipped the Newcastle Knights' hooker. And in the space of 10-15 minutes, the Newcastle Knights went from 16-0 down to 16-all. Now that's an indictment on our defence and the lack of ability to defend errors. This Friday night, the Cowboys host the Warriors. It is 9th versus 10th. The winner of that match sits in 7th position for a couple of nights before Sunday rolls around. We are missing Jason Taumalolo this Friday night. We are going to be missing Lachlan Burt this Friday. And on paper, the Warriors can argue that they have a stronger team because of our outs for North Queensland. Now, admittedly, Coen Hess does come back into the squad this Friday night. And honestly, Hessy, we need a big one from you, mate. But this is a seriously important game of footy on Friday night. And the NRL have decided to experiment on the interpretations and even rules halfway through the season. And it's potentially cost us already 2 competition points. And it might cost us 4 competition points if we go down controversially to the New Zealand Warriors. And there's no chance of this crackdown slowing down or changing. The NRL are going to be stubborn, yet the fans want change. It's going to stay the same for the rest of the season, and we all just got to deal with it. I am all in for head safety. Everyone is. That's the end game where we all need to come together from all corners of the compass, find ourselves that green zone and continue on forward. And Magic Round was maybe the worst received, most negative round of NRL I can remember. Let's hope the referees this round of footy use some common sense, and all credit to the referees, they're doing it tough themselves and I feel sorry for them. Let's hope it's a controversy-free round of footy. Let's get into it. Round 12 of the 2021 NRL season is Indigenous Round, and the Brisbane Broncos host the Melbourne Storm to kick off the celebrations up at Suncorp Stadium. And Melbourne Storm will win by 13+. Friday night footy features 2 contests, and game 1 is the aforementioned Cowboys versus Warriors game from QCB Stadium. This may not be the match of the round as so far as ladder positions go and the Sydney media putting a spotlight on top of it. But as I said earlier, this may be the most important game of the round. It is the most important game of the round, and it will potentially decide top 8 positions come the end of the year. Cowboys will win this by 1 point in an absolute thriller. This should be a belter of a match. Cannot wait for it. And the second game on Friday night sees the West's Tigers host the St. George Illawarra Dragons from Bankwest Stadium. The Dragons are still out a handful of regular first graders, and the West Tigers, they only beat the Dragons a little over a month ago, or just on a month ago. They'll know how to beat the Dragons. They'll beat the Dragons 1-12 because I still can't trust the West Tigers defense. And they'll win this game 1-12 against St. George on Friday night. Super Saturday features 3 contests, and game 1 is from Bluebet Stadium in Penrith as the Panthers host the Bulldogs. Penrith by 13 plus. Game 2 on Super Saturday sees the South Sydney Rabbitohs host the Parramatta Eels at ANZ Stadium.
It's a huge Sunday. This really, it's probably the first time this year where we get to sort of see a quick little insight or glimpse of what's going to happen in September.
Well, if that was a glimpse into what we're going to see in September, it's not going to be a very good September, is it? Because these two clubs put in their worst performances of the year last round. They'll both be chomping at the bit to come out next Saturday. And this is a really difficult game to pick, isn't it? But I'm going to tip South Sydney to bounce back and beat Parramatta. This is going to be seriously interesting. South Sydney 1-12. And the main event of Super Saturday sees the Sydney Roosters host the Canberra Raiders from Central Coast Stadium in Gosford. Whenever these two clubs meet from now on and for the past couple of years, it is always going to be a humdinger. All form goes out the window. These two clubs despise one another. And when you look at Victor Radley and Angus Crichton missing for the Roosters, and Jack Whiten and Josh Hodgson comes back in for the Canberra Raiders, this is the hardest game of the round to pick. It's going to end 1-12 for either side. And I don't know, the Canberra Raiders second half woes are not a myth. It's not even a hoodoo anymore. It's fact. It's concerning, isn't it? And the Sydney Roosters just didn't show up for Jake Friend last Saturday night, did they? They completed at 65% and just had very little intensity where they should have been a lot more up for it. I think I just got to stick with the tried and true formula of sticking with the champions in the Sydney Roosters. And I'm going to tip the Sydney Roosters 1-12, but man, this could go either way, hey? And the Sunday ticket rolls around to Coffs Harbour C.X International Sports Stadium as the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks host the Gold Coast Titans. That was a bloody mouthful. Whilst the Brisbane Broncos are easily number 1, Gold Coast Titans' second biggest rival is the Cronulla Sharks. These two teams hate one another, and this is the first time that both these clubs have come to head since Kevin Proctor took a big old chunk out of one of the Sharks players. How was the seafood, Kevy? No, it wasn't the prettiest game of footy last Friday night, but they deserved 2 competition points to come their way, Cronulla Sharks. Meanwhile, the Gold Coast Titans, scraped by the Canterbury Bulldogs. Egad, they need to get rid of the leftovers from yesteryear, the Gold Coast Titans. Fair dinkum, and they need to do it bloody fast. But the Sharks' defence is obviously their Achilles heel. They can score points, Cronulla Sharks, for sure. Both these sides actually can score points. Both can't defend to help themselves. So this could be a really fun match to watch. On the opposite side of the coin, it might be an error-riddled contest. With David Fifita coming back, that's the reason why I'm tipping Gold Coast Titans to win 1-12. And then to wrap up Indigenous round, the Newcastle Knights host the Manly Warringah Sea Eagles from McDonald Jones Stadium. The 1997 Grand Final rematch rears its head again. This famous rivalry brings out the best in Newcastle Knights, and they get a couple of their best back in Ponga and Best. Excuse the unintended pun there. But Manly Warringah Manly Warringah Sea Eagles, in my opinion, are the third best team in the competition right now so far as momentum and form goes. And whilst Ponga and Best are back in for Knights, you can't trust Newcastle. They're mentally not there, are they? Which is such a disappointment, because their first two matches of the season were really impressive. And how can you back against Manly Sea Eagles at the moment? I think they'll beat Newcastle quite handsomely, unfortunately for Knights fans, to the tune of 13 plus. But if I can just say, wouldn't it be bloody interesting? I mean, I'll chip in $5 at the moment, but wouldn't it be interesting if someone gave or wrote a check to Tommy Turbo and said, "Oi, just out of sheer curiosity, would you mind sitting out this Sunday to see how the rest of your team go?" So I've hit 50 subscribers. Well, a massive thank you is in order to all of you who have clicked on the video, given it a crack, liked the video, watched it, subscribed, and in particular thank you goes out to Entertain House for having me last week for his tipping video. And again, thank you so much to everyone who's given this video a crack, and I'll see you next week. Thanks everyone.